I'm Dr. Mike Vickers. I'm a veterinarian in South Texas, and I'm also chairman of the Texas Border Volunteers. We have these volunteers that are patriots, and we go out on all these trails and watch these trails and report that criminal activity to the Border Patrol. We've encountering people that are desperate, that are lost, that are sick. We found several dead people in here. One of these that we found over there had actually a broken leg. Somebody either beat her up, sexually assaulted her, broke her leg, and left her there. It probably took her 4 or 5 days or a week to die. We have to classify them all together. They're coming here illegally, and we have to draw the line. How we doing?
Everybody here is a citizen.
Yep.
Long and safe.
Thank you. I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to fight, do everything I can to try to help law enforcement in our country shut this border down.
There's so much fear and loathing when it comes to undocumented immigrants. And this campaign season, people from all sides are fired up about the issue.
Build a wall!
Mexicans build everything for you!
Of course, there are some bad actors among the indocumentados, just as there are among every group. But how can we lump them all together? The issue of immigration is personal for me. I'm the child of parents who immigrated from Honduras. And I'm interested to know more about the 11 million undocumented people in this country. Who are they? Why have they come? And what is life like for them once they arrive?
It's a system that effectively sweeps millions of poor people into second-class status. Did we invest in those communities? No. Instead, we declared war.
What we have today is a wealth gap that is huge.
We are dying with untreatable water.
The working class have been hammered.
These are human beings. These are people. What can we do to get that point across?
The constant telling us that we're not doing enough is causing us to explode.
It is not, sir, a matter of opinion anymore. It is clearly exposed. It's clearly exposed.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back!
They can only win by dividing America.
We know that the way things are working aren't working at all.
That's right.
If you just keep pushing, if you just keep trying, if you refuse to let the nightmares have the last say, eventually the dawn will break, the sun will come out, and you will be in a brand new day.
If there's no struggle, there can be no progress.
I'm on a mission to find out about the lives of undocumented immigrants. And I've come to the Rio Grande Valley in Texas because I've heard that more migrants come through here than anywhere else. They're often fleeing violence in their home countries and travel hundreds or even thousands of miles before they get to the Rio Grande River, the last barrier to the United States. Many are caught by the Border Patrol and thrown into immigration detention, private prisons run for profit, like this one in Karnes, Texas. Mothers and children can be held here for weeks and months before being released, with orders to appear before a judge and bracelets on their ankles. Some end up in border towns like McAllen, Texas, and sanctuaries like the Sacred Heart Catholic Church.
815, 815. Aquí está su boleto.
Cepillas para ustedes. Sister Norma Pimentel runs the sanctuary and introduces me to a family from Honduras, one of the most dangerous countries for women.
¿Querías venir a los Estados Unidos antes que...?
No. Y un riesgo para todos y para mis hijos. porque si vengo huyendo de mi país, ¿verdad? Me encontré con algo más peor en México. Caemos en manos de cárteles. Nos secuestraron y nos tuvieron en una casa, secuestrado por 2 semanas, por ahí así. Mi familia tuvo que pagar casi $15,000 por ahí. Y ahí seguimos el camino, nosotros.
¿Y dónde está tu esposo?
No lo volvimos a ver porque nos separaron, desde que nos agarró migración. Nosotros no sabemos nada de él.
¿Cuándo te pusieron la ankle bracelet?
Ayer.
Ayer.
Sí.
Sister Norma tells me nearly all the families have been through a journey marked by kidnapping, extortion, and getting separated from each other, which makes me wonder.
Y si el viaje es tan duro, ¿por qué lo hiciste?
No se puede vivir en el país. Ocupan a los pandilleros para que ellos se dediquen a traficar la droga. Entonces, en el caso mío fue en mi casa. En mi casa ya lo habían ocupado para esconder la droga. Entonces, sin autoridad mía. A ella la estaba un marero, la estaba acosando sexualmente.
Sí, el muchacho era el que cuidaba ahí como el jefe y yo no les paraba bola. Entonces ellos me acosaban sexualmente.
Mi esposo llegó y se peleó con ellos. Entonces nos dijo, 24 horas para que te vayas, si no nos matamos. Entonces dejamos abandonado todo ya y nos venimos. Así.
En mi país ya no quiero regresar. Si supieran cómo es Honduras. Es horrible. La muchacha, si no nos juntamos con ellos, nos matan. Nosotros no se meten a la casa o nos roban. No nos violan.
Gracias, Jenny.
Seeing this family is like looking in a distorting mirror. This could be me if my parents had never left Honduras.
Honduras, Guatemala, Salvador, they now have some of the highest murder rates in the world, and nobody is prosecuted for it.
I've come to talk to attorney Jennifer Harbury because she has seen the roots of violence in Central America. Harbury has always been a lion for human rights. She spent the 80s and 90s witnessing the dirty war in Guatemala, a war that killed more than 200,000 people.
In the massacres, questions are surfacing about U.S. support for the Guatemalan military.
Now in Texas, she's representing people like that family I met at Sacred Heart. Desperate people facing deportation. She sees a connection between her past and present because, she says, the dirty wars in Central America never really ended.
We're sending people back to highly dangerous situations in Honduras, Salvador, and Guatemala. These people are in danger of being killed, tortured, or dragged into de facto slavery by the narcotráfico drug lords in those countries. Yet when they get here, we choose to pretend that none of those dangers really exist and to throw them back.
So what about people who say, well, that's not our problem? Why don't the governments in those countries deal with it?
The United States actually played a key role in backing and arming and funding military death squads, even though we knew that they were carrying out those systemic human rights abuses. That kind of collaboration is allowing these people to continue the incredible kinds of torture, rape, femicide, brutalization that they did all through the dirty wars. These are human beings coming across, and they are refugees fleeing terrible danger.
Even if migrants make it into Texas, their ordeal is far from over. Most want to go north to big cities like Houston, where work and family may be waiting. But far from the border, as many as 100 miles inside the United States, there are U.S. Border Patrol checkpoints that stop the migrants in their tracks.
Is this a border? Is this the border with Mexico?
The Immigration Naturalization Act authorizes Border Patrol agents to conduct immigration inspections interior of the United States within 100 air miles of the border. Okay? Everybody's U.S. citizens? Yeah. Sir, you're a U.S. citizen?
Yes.
Ma'am?
I am a U.S. citizen, yes.
Okay.
But non-citizens need to avoid the checkpoint and the certainty of deportation. So they go around it, trying to cross the unforgiving terrain on foot. This is the guy who has to deal with all those migrants trying to get around the checkpoint.
So when you're driving out here, are you constantly looking for people?
You're looking for any element that doesn't appear to be the norm. Okay, you see this right here?
Yeah.
Those were done so they can cross over. And they can get real bad in a hurry. This is what they got to put up with, just walking it. And then you got the terrain. It's thick. It makes it harsh, and especially if you don't have enough water, a lot of supplies that you need to keep yourself going.
Because he's law enforcement, Chief Martinez is duty-bound to apprehend the migrants. But I sense that he's torn about that, since he has a lot of sympathy for them, too.
How hot does it get?
In the summer months, we run about 105. Wow. So it varies as to what could happen to them while they're walking. And the thing is, though, once they get sick, they don't know where they're at. And they just, it doesn't take us long to find a body here. And for every one body we found, we're probably missing 5.
By Chief Martinez's calculations, thousands of bodies are still out in the brush, since about 400 have been found just in the past 5 years. That's in Brooks County, inside the United States, not on the border. And Chief Martinez says that with all those deaths, he and his staff have the gruesome task of making a record of every corpse.
So these are pictures from the last year?
Yes, from 2015.
It says here that this is a body you found out there.
He was found along the fence line.
And will they try to identify who these people were, or is that
Yes.
impossible?
We've been able to identify some of them, in fact.
Are they all men?
No. They're men, they're women, they're young adults, they're youth, probably as young as 10 at times. They'll do whatever they can just to go make ends meet. He died in the ambulance.
Honestly, when I set out to explore the topic of immigration, I didn't bargain for this. I didn't expect to encounter this many people dying inside our own country.
This is a death that you don't want. You know you're dying. Who's gonna hear you? Out in the middle of nowhere, animals around you waiting for you to expire so they can go tear you up. It's senseless.
Migrants with no papers who are trapped in the Rio Grande Valley have a few stark options. Leave the country, risk death by trying to go around the Border Patrol, or stay put. Today, I'm meeting someone who's chosen to stay. But from what I hear, this choice may end up being just as deadly.
Hola, mucho gusto. Soy America. Alondra, mucho gusto. Hi. Jackie? I'm America. Nice to meet you.
Yo me di cuenta que tenía una bolita en mi pecho. Me hicieron una biopsia. A la siguiente semana me hablaron de la clínica para decirme que el tumor era canceroso. En una parte de mí decía, ok, si tengo cáncer, que me den quimioterapias, que me den radiaciones, que me hagan lo que me tengan que hacer. No quiero morirme. Mis hijos me necesitan.
Jackie, what was that like when you found out from your mom?
I was in shock. When she told me that, I thought, what was I gonna do if the next day I found out that my mom wasn't gonna be by my side? And I was scared.
Empezamos las quimioterapias en noviembre y diciembre. Fueron 960, me parece, de cada una. Y fueron 4 sesiones.
¿Teniste que pagar por todo?
Sí, tuvimos que hacer actividades, bingos, rifas, de todo para juntar el dinero.
¿Y no regresaste a limpiar casas?
No, no he podido regresar ni a trabajar. El doctor me estaba atendiendo con el seguro del condado. Pero 26 de diciembre él ya no iba a trabajar aquí en el centro de cáncer. Otros doctores me podían ver, pero me cobraban más de 500 la consulta.
Wow.
Pues yo no iba a poder pagarlo. Todo lo que fue el mes de enero y de febrero no tuve quimioterapia.
¿Y por qué no fuiste a encontrar otro médico en otra ciudad?
A otra ciudad no puedo ir porque no tengo papeles. Y allá hay muchas ayudas. Me dicen que en Houston, en Galveston y todo eso. Pues, ¿cómo voy?
Porque hay checkpoints.
Hay checkpoints. Sí.
Because she's undocumented, Alondra isn't eligible for Medicaid, even though she's poor and very ill. ¿Piensas en ir a México y tener seguro allá?
No. Como ya tengo el diagnóstico de cáncer, no me pueden atender con ningún seguro.
¿No te van a cubrir?
No. Pues es que tengo muchas ganas de vivir. Que pasen los años, de volver a trabajar y verlos crecer. Ella me dice que quiere ser abogada. Y le digo que quiero ver mi abogada en la familia. Y sí, o sea, ver sus hijos, verlos casarse a todos, todo eso me inspira a que yo quiero vivir, quiero seguir adelante, no quiero quedar en esto. Nunca hay que perder la fe, nunca. Pues es que tengo muchas ganas de vivir.
When I hear stories like Alondra Garcia's, I get sad. And then I get angry. Do the undocumented have any human rights? If so, who's fighting for them?
You've got to get out there with a picket sign and get some action going. And when you put all of those things together, then nonviolence works.
America's most famous farm worker leader, Cesar Chavez, founded La Unión del Pueblo Entero, or LUPE, an activist group dedicated to the idea that low-income immigrants should band together to help themselves. In spring 2016, their cause was DAPA, a federal program to allow undocumented parents to stay in the U.S. The Supreme Court was about to rule.
If we get a decision from the Supreme Court that is not beneficial to our community, we're not going to stop.
And in June, the ruling meant the parents could be deported. For Tanya Chavez, it was a blow and a reason to keep fighting. Chavez works for Lupe and is a community leader. She has 2 master's degrees in business administration and communications. But despite her credentials, she's also trapped in the valley, for she too is undocumented.
I actually didn't really know that there was an actual wall.
All the way, the whole border.
The whole border?
The whole border, from Bronzeville all the way to California.
Oh, to California?
I mean, it cuts through different parts, but yeah, it goes all the way.
Where were you born and raised, and where do you come from?
I was born and raised in Veracruz, Mexico, and then my parents decided to send me and my brother over to the United States to a better place for our education. But when we came into the United States, we asked for a student visa, and the student visa was denied.
Why?
Because my parents didn't have enough money in the bank, and so for you to be able to acquire a student visa, you need to have thousands of dollars in the bank.
So instead of student visas, Tanya says the kids came on tourist visas. But while she was in college in Texas, Tanya wasn't aware of the difference.
All along, I thought I was documented.
When did you fully understand what it meant to be undocumented?
I found myself caged in the valley. I couldn't go beyond the checkpoint, and I couldn't go back to Mexico.
So people say that if you legalize immigrants who came to this country illegally, then you are rewarding illegal behavior. What is your response to that?
I don't think it's about rewarding individuals. I think it's about allowing them to contribute to the society that they have made their home. It's about allowing them to pay taxes back. It's allowing them to contribute to this economy.
Some people claim the border is wide open, but as I've just become aware, there's already a wall along much of it. I've also learned that the federal government spends more to secure the border than on any other element of law enforcement.
Border Patrol's coming.
Today, we see the Border Patrol everywhere.
Oh no! Ay, Dios mío. Were they trying to cross?
Yeah.
Ay, pobrecitos.
This is when I realized how privileged I am. My heart's beating so hard.
I think for me, every time I read an article or watch a news report or meet a dreamer or see a farm worker, or, I see myself, I see my family. And I just think it only would take a small amount of imagination for any of us to put ourselves in these people's shoes and try and understand that they're people and that they're humans just like us, and that it could very well be us, and that we won the lottery by being born in this country.
What I'm learning about undocumented people in the Rio Grande Valley applies to them everywhere. They live life on a knife's edge. They know that millions have been deported, so they're insecure, vulnerable to exploitation, doing jobs no one else will. They make these sacrifices so that their children can have a better life. But I'm hearing that over the past few years in Texas, many families have been living in fear that even their American-born children, citizens of the United States, are at risk.
Hola, soy América.
Hola, soy Alexa.
Hola, Alexa, mucho gusto.
Soy Esther.
Hola, Esther. Gracias por hablar conmigo.
Vente, papá. So cute.
Y él no tiene su certificado.
No.
Y esto lo enseñaste allá para el certificado.
These women are telling me that in the past several years, across the state, the registrars who issue birth certificates stopped accepting the matricula consular, the kind of ID undocumented immigrants carry, even though Texas used to accept it and other states still do.
Y esto no lo acepta.
No, tampoco. Y esto es lo único que nos dan en el hospital.
Nor do the registrars accept the certificate of live birth.
Es como una
Esto
copia.
es del hospital donde él nació.
Sí.
Y ellos dicen que esto no es suficiente.
No.
Trabas. Y hasta ahorita no sacó el de la niña. La niña tiene 4 años y ella no tiene su registro.
Wow.
Y tengo el niño ahorita de 1 año, 8 meses, y tampoco le sacó su registro.
Pensamos qué va a ser el día de mañana que nuestros hijos crezcan y no tengan su registro, cómo le vamos a hacer para ponerlos en la escuela o para verificar si son nuestros hijos.
I'm finding this really upsetting. A birth certificate is so basic. It's your proof of existence, the thing you need to get all other ID. What's going on here? Is Texas trying to make the next generation stateless?
porque entonces ¿de dónde eres? Si nace aquí, en México no van a querer darle un acta de nacimiento tampoco porque no nacieron ahí. No consta que nacieron ahí.
Ellos no van a poder salir.
Si no la tienen, ¿cómo?
Pues en realidad, pues ¿verdad? Todos son ciudadanos los que han nacido aquí.
¿Y ellos cómo se sientan?
Pues a veces es triste y difícil porque pues mi niño abraza a los niños. Dice, tú vas a ir a la escuela igual que yo. Dice, aunque no tengas el papel. Es muy difícil porque a veces nosotros estamos, a veces quizás en las sombras y no contamos lo que en realidad pasamos como indocumentados, como padres. A veces es difícil verlos y a veces se rompe el corazón al ver a los niños, al verlos así.
But the undocumented families are fighting back. They filed a lawsuit against the state for denying their babies the citizenship guaranteed under the 14th Amendment. Just like with those voter ID laws, Texas says it's trying to prevent fraud. But even the judge in the case calls this fraud an imaginary concern. Attorney Jennifer Harbury says it's all part of an anti-immigrant campaign. Just like the whole offensive notion that immigrants are having anchor babies so they can stay here.
How do you see this issue of anchor babies in relation to the Constitution and to the 14th Amendment?
Well, it's preposterous. And let me begin by saying, you know, my father's family and my father himself are all immigrants. They also came here running from extinction, let us just say. So I'm an anchor baby then, right? But under the Constitution, the Due Process Clause, 14th Amendment, it says, anyone who is born in the United States is a citizen of the United States, period.
If Harbury's right, then how can the Texas policy stand? And will it? Sandra, one of the moms I met, says she's gone to Edinburgh City Hall 4 times and still hasn't succeeded in getting a birth certificate for her baby. She's hoping things will be different if I come with her.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
¿Listas?
Buenos días. Venía a sacar unos registros.
¿Registros para ti o
para los niños?
¿Listo tu ID, por favor?
Ah, ok.
No. Se acepta la visa o la de elector y la licencia de manejo o pasaporte.
All things that, if you're undocumented, are impossible to get.
Correct.
So then parents who are undocumented but their children are born here in the U.S. can't get their kids' birth certificates?
Not as per our standards.
But isn't that enough to be considered an American citizen, that you were born in the United States?
I'm not denying that the baby's an American citizen. I'm not denying that at all. What I'm saying is, since she is the mother and she's not a U.S. born, then this is what we require from her.
And so her next option is what?
In a case like this, I can refer her and have her send all the documents that she's got to Austin, see if Austin will accept that.
Okay.
Is there anything that I can help you all with?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I'd love for you to clarify this document.
Es que ya había venido 4 veces, pero no me habían explicado que había esta opción.
Sí, no tiene opciones. Sí, ni necesita un photo ID, though.
Sí, tengo la ID del consulado. Es la ID del consulado mexicano. Es lo que tengo.
If you go through the state of Texas, yeah.
Then they will accept that ID and other forms of proof of residence.
Yes.
And when did they start handing out this form?
It's been years.
Well, she's been here 4 times, and she said no one has ever given her this form or explained it to her.
She probably didn't ask the right questions, and I don't know if she understood or not.
These are in English. Do you have the applications in Spanish? These applications are in English.
Let me see if we have it in Spanish.
Okay. Thank you.
La última vez que vine le dije que si había otra opción de que nos pudieran mandar a otro lugar.
¿Y qué te dijeron?
Y me dijeron, no, porque no tienen las IDs como que te están pidiendo. Fue lo que me dijo.
The state does not offer it in Spanish, so it has to be translated.
Okay. That seems crazy, doesn't it?
State of Texas.
Attorneys for the families suing the state told me that parents have mailed in these exact documents and still have been denied birth certificates. Months later, Texas agreed to settle the birth certificate case and loosen up the ID requirements. Attorneys for the families believe they've won a victory, but say they really won't know for a while. The state has 9 months to comply with the agreement.
I'd like to see something done about the illegal alien problem that would be so sensitive and so understanding about labor needs and human needs that that problem wouldn't come up. As we have kind of made illegal some kinds of labor that I'd like to see legal, we're doing two things. We're creating a whole society of really honorable, decent, family-loving people that are in violation of the law, and secondly, we're exacerbating relations with Mexico.
Rather than making them or talking about putting up a fence, why don't we work out some recognition of our mutual problems, make it possible for them to come here legally with a work permit, and then while they're working and earning here, they pay taxes here. And when they want to go back, they can go back, and they can cross and open the border both ways.
Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr. didn't quite open the border, but as president, each did extend legal status to millions of undocumented immigrants living in the U.S. So how did we go from that to this?
Listen, we should enforce the law. How do we enforce the law? Yes, we should deport them. We should build a wall. We should triple the Border Patrol.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Criminals and rapists? I've seen multiple studies which indicate that violent crime among undocumented immigrants is actually lower than in the general population. I need to talk to someone who can explain the attitude shift. So I'm going to meet with Dan Stein, the head of a group called the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, a lobbying group based in Washington, D.C. They believe we're letting too many people in, both illegals and legals. Given where I've been, I decide to start with the babies.
You've used the term anchor babies. The reality is that at the moment, there are 11 million or more undocumented immigrants living in this country. What is your wish for that 11 million population? What would you, if you had
Some of them could probably stay. Some of them will have to go home.
So are you saying they should be removed?
Well, not all at once, but there's a process by which you encourage people to leave. Some people would be put in deportation proceedings. Some people would go back home. Nothing about the law, nothing about Congress, nothing about the American people have ever said the way you immigrate here is to break the law and then wait around for the next amnesty program. It's not the law.
I guess we're at an impasse where I see refugees and people struggling to make a better life for their children. Dan Stein sees lawbreakers, pure and simple. But could it be that cut and dry? I'm going to be meeting a young woman whose story I've heard is anything but straightforward.
Hi, cutie.
Even though the birth certificate case has been settled, for now, I hear that there are many Americans who are struggling to prove their full citizenship. And I'm going to meet a woman in New York who says this happened to her. Claudia Palacios is an activist for immigrant rights and considers herself a radical, which you might find surprising because for years, Claudia was a United States Marine.
What did you do when you were a Marine?
I was a combat photographer.
Oh, wow.
So I would embed in different teams and just capture what was happening.
Where are you from originally?
My parents migrated to the state of Texas.
So you're first generation born in the U.S.?
I am, yes. I'm first born and first generation
Yeah.
from indigenous Mexican migrants, yeah.
And were you born in a kind of traditional Texas hospital?
No, I was not. Due to fear of deportation, my mother chose not to give birth in a hospital. I was born through a midwife, and midwifery in Texas is very common. They're allowed to file certificates, and then those are presented to the state of Texas, and then you're supposed to like get a vital record that says that you were born in U.S. territory.
Right.
You're granted like a Social Security and all these other things, but what you're not granted is this birth certificate.
So when you signed up for the Marines, what documents did they ask you for?
This is actually the paper that I gave to my recruiter, and it's what was signed by the midwife. I mean,
this was enough.
This was enough, and I joined as a citizen.
As a citizen.
Not as a migrant, not as like anything else. Okay. I am a citizen. When I joined the military, my mother and little sister decided that like they were gonna migrate back to Mexico, and at that point, I was in Okinawa, Japan. I applied for a passport, and that was the first time I was denied. It was unreal. It was very unreal.
Claudia's story seems unreal to me too. But the more people I talk to, the more I see that there's a whole class of disenfranchised people living among us.
I thought it was a mistake, and I provided additional information that they wanted, and it was just rejection after rejection. It's been a struggle of almost 10 years now. There's paths for citizenship through naturalization, through the military, but I don't belong to any other state. So how could I start that process? So I'm basically stateless.
What does that mean for your life personally?
I haven't seen my mother and sister in years. You know, last time I saw them, I was still in the military. It was 2010, so it's gonna be 6 years now. If I'm not viewed by the country as a citizen, where does that leave me? It's very scary.
Claudia's story is so strange and so sad. This is one version of a life without papers. You may find yourself stranded in your own country with no way to see your family. And Claudia also reminds me that there are so many people we hardly ever think about. They may be professionals, or pick our food, or be a U.S. Marine. They may not have papers, but they're here, and they are part of our country too.